My name is Alessio Fasano. I'm the Director of Center for Celiac Research at the Massachusetts General Hospital for Children in Boston. Yes, we just 2 weeks ago we published a paper in New England Journal of Medicine on a large cohort of infants at risk for celiac disease that were followed for 10 years. Well, celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, so it's like having diabetes or multiple sclerosis, but very, very peculiar because there are features in celiac disease that are unique. Like any other autoimmune disease, it's a recipe with 2 ingredients, genes, many, that you have to be predisposed, and then an environmental trigger that is mismanaged by the immune system because of this genetic predisposition. The immune system is there to defend us. In people, they are genetically skewed for autoimmunity. The immune system, rather than to get rid of these enemies, start to attack your own body. What is peculiar about celiac disease is the enemy is known. It's called gluten. It's a protein in many grains, including wheat, barley, and rye. That is the one that set the immune system to start this attack against its own body. The target being the intestine with the outcome, the clinical outcome that characterized celiac disease. So this issue was settled in 2003 when we published this, seminal paper that plants the celiac disease flag in the United States, but more generally in North America. Before this paper was published, the general sense was that celiac disease was rare in the United States, much more frequent in Europe. Now, many epidemiological studies, including this 2003 study in the United States, suggest that celiac disease is roughly 1% worldwide, everywhere. So it's not rare at all. So the projected number of people with celiac disease in the United States is approximately 3.5 million. The problem is that because it's a clinical chameleon, because the awareness was not that high, and because it's very difficult to make a diagnosis, only 10–15% of these 3.5 million people have been diagnosed so far. The rest remains undiagnosed. There are comorbidities with celiac disease, so there are some other conditions that they are clustered to have a much higher risk to develop celiac disease. Classical example, type 1 diabetes, 7 times more than the general population. People with Hashimoto thyroiditis, i.e. autoimmune thyroid diseases, between 15 and 20 times more. Folks with Down syndrome, 10 times more. So there are definitely some populations that are higher risk to develop celiac disease. Because of a pediatrician in Denmark, in Netherlands, that made this observation during World War II. Celiac disease has been described for many years, probably for 2,000 years. But what was the culprit was totally unknown until this gentleman made a very interesting observation. During World War II, the mortality that was extremely high of celiac disease, 30–35% of kids would not make it, went to 0 during the war and came back to pre-war era to 30–35%. And Dickey, this pediatric gastroenterologist from the Netherlands, made the link, the hypothesis that this swing in mortalities was related to the availability of wheat during the war that was not available, and therefore flour and bread products that made with normally made with wheat was made with potato starch. And after the war, when wheat was reintroduced in the diet because it was available, the mortality went up. And based on this hypothesis, he designed a study recruiting only 6 kids, in which he eliminated gluten from the diet, and the disease went away. And then give these kids again gluten in the diet, and they relapse. That's how we know. I can, because I unfortunately feel responsible, at least partially responsible for that. Because our crusade initially was to increase awareness of celiac disease, because this was a neglected condition. Before that paper that we published suggesting that celiac disease affects roughly 1% of the general population, there was an underestimation of 1,000 times. It was claimed that celiac disease affected 1 in 10,000 people. So following that paper that was published only 10 years ago, we really launched in this awareness campaign, and the pendulum now swung all the other way. By the end of this year, roughly 100 million people will consume gluten-free products in the United States, 1 out of 3. Definitely, these are not people that have celiac disease by definition. So who are these people? And if you dissect a little bit, this population, you can divide them in two large groups. The one that they have to be on a gluten-free diet for medical necessity, i.e. that if they eat gluten, they are sick. And the other group, much larger, that go gluten-free because they believe that it's good for them, or because it's fashionable, or because some icon, an actress, or a politician is embracing, or a sportsman is embracing gluten-free diet, and they feel that they should do the same. So of these 100 million people, roughly 50 million they go gluten-free because they believe it's healthy. 37 million they go gluten-free because they believe they lose weight going gluten-free, and that's not necessarily the case. So these are the 87 million people roughly. They go on a gluten-free diet, and they don't deserve to go on the gluten-free diet. The remaining 13 million roughly are the ones that definitely needs to go gluten-free. Who are these 13 million? 300,000, 350,000, they are the diagnosed celiac disease, the 10-15% that I was telling you before. Roughly 6 or 7 million, they go gluten-free because they say they have mainly GI symptoms that will not go away unless they take gluten out of their diet. And the remaining 5-6 million, they have to go gluten-free because they have mainly not GI symptoms like headaches, foggy mind, joint pain, that kind of symptoms, tingling, that would not go away unless they go gluten-free. This category now is being crystallized in the new entity that we call non-celiac gluten sensitivity or gluten sensitivity. It's called gluten freedom. That our center decided to embark in this project just to clarify this tremendous confusion that is out there that you were mentioning before. So there are Google's motor search and blogs and other books that suggest that the entire human species should go gluten free, otherwise it would be extinct, creating a tremendous confusion among the lay people who should really embrace the gluten-free diet and who should not. This book is trying to make clarity of the story because it's written by who really, i.e. the center here, have been responsible for making this movement, so to speak, that went out of control, if you wish, becoming such a fashionable diet.